Let's go, let's go, let's go. What's going on? Do I have a bad connection right now? Hey guys, what's going on? How's everyone doing? Just wanted to come on and share a couple of stories with you. So, happy hump day. I had a particular case I wanted to share and discuss and see if any part of this resonates with you as a therapist, right? So I've been having some, like tough cases come through the door, and that's kind of what we're known for. If this is the first time, thank you for coming on and watching. My name is Huang. I'm an occupational therapist and certified hand therapist. And where you're watching me is in the back part of my clinic. We've got patients in the front, and I'm in the back. And what we're known for here at the clinic is, helping people with some challenging cases. When it comes to becoming a certified hand therapists are typically known for solving problems of different types of hand and arm injuries. So it could be a hand problem, it could be a wrist, an elbow, a shoulder. And we're mostly known for helping people with post-surgical cases, right? But believe it or not, certified hand therapists can treat all types of cases, whether it's surgical or non-surgical, to help people who have these types of injuries. The most difficult ones are, of course, the surgical cases, right? And the surgical cases that are difficult can be difficult for a lot of different reasons. They can be difficult by the sheer nature of the injury and surgery, or it can be sometimes difficult from a personal perspective, like the therapist and then the person, the patient, right? So, what happens when your patients are having a really hard time and they're not getting the results from their therapy? What do you, as the therapist, tell them, right? Do you tell them to quit because it doesn't matter, that it is what it is? Do you tell them that? Or do you tell them that they got to keep working on it in a very specific way? And if they follow a proven plan, it can actually help them, right? So that's what I want to ask you. Do you tell them to keep going or do you tell them to quit, right? So the topic I want to talk today is like why you shouldn't quit when you're just about to win. And this, you can relate to it from a, like, I'm working with a patient perspective, or you can take it from a, I want to become a certified hand therapist and I have yet to pass the exam. That's who I'm talking to a lot of times. Talking to therapists who have taken the exam and they failed. I'm talking to therapists who keep trying and trying to study on their own, but they just can't seem to get it. And they keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off taking the exam. So, do you tell somebody like that to just quit, or do you tell them to keep going? I choose in my clinic to tell my patients to keep going. So if you're here and you're like, you want to become an expert, you want to become a master of hand therapy, and you want to become a certified hand therapist, then I'm here to tell you also to keep going. Right? That's the biggest thing. Right now, the hand exam prep program is open, and we're open for enrollment through August 2nd, because then we're going to start into the intensive portion of the program. And the whole point of it is really to get everyone geared up and ready for the November exam. Now, I've got people in there who they know they're coming in, and they are coming in joining us early and taking it in May. But regardless of whatever it is, I just want to have that conversation with, what do you tell your patients and what are you telling yourself? Because honestly, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I have a patient who, he's actually a healthcare professional, which are some of the most challenging people to work with. If I can't imagine, I can imagine what I would be like if I hurt myself. Okay, like, people, knock on wood, please don't let me hurt myself. Um, Thankfully, I've not hurt my hands, but I've hurt my knees way too many times. And I think I'm a pleasant person, but sometimes when you're in healthcare, you kind of, you know, a certain amount of information, but and it's hard to be a full-on patient, right? So anyway, I have this healthcare provider. He um so he's, he knows, he's a joint guy. He knows about joints and he knows about muscles and stuff like that, but he sustained a tendon injury. So he sustained one of the hardest injuries, right? A tendon injury. So right here, zone 2, baby, small finger, right? Zone 2. And he's coming in like, can I actually, can I get better? Right? The question is, can I get better? What do I need to do to get better? Will it ever get better? And the answer is, yes, it can get better. And here is the proven steps to get it better, right? Because tendon injuries are kind of tough. And you have to use evidence based practice in terms of, okay, well, this is what we know about what tendons do, right? We know that tendons in the fingers, they have to be able to glide. So the tendons, they sit right on top of each other practically inside of a tunnel, and they have to be able to glide. If the tendons don't glide, then you can't bend your fingers. And if you can't bend your fingers, then guess what happens? The joints get stiff. Just the sheer nature of the joints get stiff, right? So when they come in, you have an opportunity to tell them about like what happens in that particular injury, what happens at the phase in which they come to you, right? Because not everyone comes to you on time. Not everyone comes to you, when they're loosey goosey. People come into you when they're having trouble. That's the whole point. And you've got to know, um, from the evidence that from the practice. I know from reading the books. I know from taking courses, and I know from practical experience what I'm supposed to be able to do at week 5 when he wasn't at 5. He was like at 9 weeks when he first came in. So I'm allowed to do X, Y, and Z, right? I'm allowed to passively move you as much as possible. I'm allowed to start moving you like actively as much as possible. And then what are some of the techniques that I could use to kind of get you to help that tendon glide better? I also have to have a conversation with you about what if it doesn't work, right? I have to have a conversation with you about um, when we should be seeing progress, how we should be seeing progress, and at what point I would be recommending another surgery. I've already had these conversations. Now, what happens is you have to have these conversations over and over and over again. And you want to, again, use that evidence based knowledge that you have and apply it. Now, um, when it comes to difficult cases like that, we always want to work with these tendon cases, but we somehow think that it's in a perfect world that they all come gliding like they say in the protocol book, right? If anyone uses the Indiana, protocol book or the rehab of the hand protocol book, all of these books tell you, oh, you're supposed to move X amount of time, and you're supposed to move it like this by this time. And in an ideal world, yes, I've seen it sometimes, right? But majority of the time, I've seen some delayed healing, some complications. So when there is a delayed healing, it can interrupt. If someone scars really densely, right? Someone scars really densely, it's kind of challenging. And then, of course, the technique and the recovery can be surgeon dependent, depending on who's doing the surgery. Some surgeons do a cleaner line than others. Some surgeons do, don't, the way that their technique doesn't create as much edema in someone as others. I've seen various ones, right? But at the end of the day, when you are working with a challenging case, you have to be able to critically think through it and say, what is this particular problem? How am I going to solve it? And I'm going to help my patient make a decision. So I had to help him make a decision. Do you want to do therapy, or do you want to keep your finger stuck like that? Right? And you have to say it in a way that you have to describe things or discuss things in a way that helps people understand where they're at, where their particular problem's at, and then what they need to do. We have a very specific plan. So my very specific plan with my guy was like, I need you to come, if it's I like 3 times a week for the first several weeks so I can see the progress and the improvement. Then we can dial it down to twice a week. But if you're coming down to twice a week, then I need to ensure that you know what you're doing at home, because I need you to do X, Y, and Z every 2 hours. Are you able to do that? I can't get any results without that other person's buy-in. I cannot get any results without that other person's buy-in, right? They have to be bought into the fact that I can help them. They have to be bought into the fact that it's possible. And then they have to see the progress little bit by little bit. And I have to show them the progress little bit by little bit. So we were able to close the wound. I mean, it had been too long. I don't know. There was this one remaining stitch that was in there that was just keeping it pinching pain. It kept the scar kept opening. It wasn't even a scar. It was just like this one spot just kept opening up and opening up, and it wouldn't like come out. So anyway, we finally got it cut out. We finally closed the wound. It just took a little while longer. All right, but there's so much scarring, just so much scarring. The finger, is the PIP extension contracture. If you're stuck like that, listen, it has got to go to 0. It has got to go to end range extension. It's really, really important. And where you put your focus at the beginning will show how you can get some improvement. And there's a very specific plan. And the reason why I talk about difficult cases, right, is when you are trying to become a certified hand therapist, it is not supposed to be easy, because you are working with cases like this. You're working with people with delicate hand injuries that get stuck, that might need a second surgery, and takes a proven process to go through. So we got him we got him wound closure, and we started working the joints to get rid of the joint stiffness. We're working on tendon glides, right? But now I need to get that PIP straight. So we started plaster casting to get it to 0. And within 2, maybe this is the third one, it is really close to 0. And we can see better tendon gliding. But we have to keep working on it. And the progress and the process is really slow. So funny enough, I had this discussion with him and another patient that came to me. She came to me 2 years ago, and she's now back. But what happens is you want to get better so fast. You want to get better so fast. You want it to be easy. And if it was easy, everyone would be a certified hand therapist, and there'd be nothing special about it, right? But it's not easy. It's meant to be challenging. Sorry, let me get rid of this thing. It's meant to be challenging. Now, if it's meant to be challenging, it's meant to be challenging for a reason. You have to be able to critically think through. I have to talk to my guy every time he comes in, to tell him why it's so important, to show him what progress he has made every centimeter of the way, right? And when you're able to do that, you can keep those patients and you can help them better. And you can help them better understand why they have to keep coming. And you can better show them and explain to them why, when you plateau, or the reason why you're trying to get him to here is for the next step. So my example is, in order for, if he is really adhered, and I think he's adhered, you can do a tenolysis, which is a second surgery to go and release the tendons. You can do that. However, you get the best possible results after tenolysis if one, you have great passive range of motion, and two, you don't have residual pain. If you have joint stiffness, which then contributes to residual pain in the joints, when they go in and do a second surgery to remove the old scarring, what happens? There's new scarring that's created. So if your joints are supple, right, and they have great passive range of motion and you have no pain, when you have that surgery, the surgery introduces pain, but guess what? You'll be able to move and glide through that new scarring, and just continuously glide and glide and glide, so that as the second surgery, as that wound heals, you'll be able to move, and you're stressing that scar so that the tendon will still glide. So you essentially have a new chance of making sure that the tendon moves even though there's scarring that's going to be taking place, right? So the reason why I talk about this, and the reason why, I talk about, this process and the progress that you need to look for, and that it's challenging, is because we don't want our patients to quit. I know I don't, and I know majority of the time people are working in hands and working with these difficult cases don't want their patients to quit, because this is his dominant hand. He wants to be able to box, he wants to be able to treat, he wants to be able to make a fist, and he doesn't want to have problems later on because of the fact that he can't move his fingers, right? So if we don't want our patients to quit, then why should you quit when you are so close to winning when it comes to becoming a certified hand therapist, when it's about mastering what you know and what you do as a certified hand therapist? Ask yourself that question, right? I tell my patients all the time, whether it's after surgery or they're looking to avoid surgery, it is possible, and I talk about why it's possible for them and what we have to do to work together to make that possible. And what I use a mix of the evidence-based practice from books and courses and stuff like that, and from the experience that I have from being able to have helped someone else before, right? So I want to bring that same concept to you as the occupational therapist or the physical therapist who wants to become a certified hand therapist. Now, you're so close. Why you should not quit just when you're about to win is if you have failed the hand exam and you still want to become a certified hand therapist, listen to this. If you have failed the hand therapy exam and you still want to become a certified hand therapist, it is proven and backed up by science, right, and experience, that if you give up and you don't take the exam again, you'll never become a CHT. Proven, right? Listen to this again. If you have taken the exam and you have, and you give up and don't take the exam again, you'll never become a certified hand therapist, right? If you want to take it and you keep studying, but somehow you're never studying enough, and you keep putting off the exam and putting off the exam and putting off the exam, guess what? You'll never become a certified hand therapist. Now, you're still a great therapist, right? You still can be a good therapist. You'll still have patients come to you. You'll still have a good job, but you won't have the highest level of specialty in hand therapy, which is the certified hand therapy designation. You won't have, most of us who want to become a certified hand therapist get it because it gives you an automatic respect of what you're capable of doing and what you have the capacity to be able to do and to be able to treat as a certified hand therapist, which gives you lots of choices. So if you just give up before you even get there, if you give up before you win, you won't have as many choices, right? People with certified hand therapy designation have an easier time finding a job. There are people who, they're looking for a certified hand therapy only position, right? Surgeons are looking for, hospitals are looking for it. But regardless of those areas, you know, we have patients who are looking for it. We have people who have these complex injury who need therapists, certified hand therapists who are well versed in working with difficult cases, who are well versed in knowing what it is to be challenged when things are difficult. If it was easy, we all be doing it, right? But it's not. These things, becoming an expert to master what you want to master as a hand therapist, as a certified hand therapist, takes time, and it takes a certain amount of sacrifice. And the sacrifice is on your time, right? You can try, some people try to move on without it, and it usually comes back after a couple of years, like, yeah, I keep thinking about it, I still want to become one. So do what you need to do to become a certified hand therapist. Really, it doesn't matter how many years you've been practicing. You could have been practicing for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you know, whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. Over 20 years. We have so much more time. Like, as therapists, you know, please, knock on wood, we live for a long time, right? So knock on wood, we live for a long time. And 20 something years into this field, I still can work for another 20 years, right? So we still have plenty of time. So don't let time be the definitive say, like, I can't do it, right? If you want to do it, if it's something that's important to you, then try again. This time, try to study in a way that can help you pass, right? If you failed before, try to study in a way that will help you pass. Now, that might just take tweaking what you're already doing, right? Um, and a big chunk of believing in yourself. You have to have a big chunk of that. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then you won't want to do it again, right? But if you believe in yourself, like, I know I can do it. I've worked with many people who've just failed multiple times, and they still want it. And if you believe in yourself, and believe it's possible for you, it is possible. And you're just so close. You're so close. You're just about to win. And it would be a shame if you gave it up right now. And that's how sometimes I feel like with my patients. They're just so close to making progress. They're so close to getting that breakthrough. If they could just stick with it, they could actually live without pain. How wonderful would that be? That they could live without pain, without restrictions, and then, without the fear of getting injured again. That was my patient today. She's like, I'm just afraid of getting hurt again. I'm just afraid of getting hurt again. I said, okay, let's work on that. Let's work on knowing what you need to do if you're to get that pain again. Let's know what you need to do so you feel safe. Let's get you strong enough so you feel safe to do it, so you're not fearful of getting hurt. She's in her 60s. She's extremely active. And why shouldn't she continue to be active? There's no rhyme or reason why she shouldn't be able to go biking, to go rollerblading. She is jump roping. She gets in her garden. She works with children, so she gets on the floor with them. Like, why shouldn't she? Loves it. Why shouldn't she be able to do all those things, right? But I think that sometimes we have to teach people not to give up on themselves. And that's what I'm here for. If you're a therapist, if you're an occupational therapist and you're a physical therapist, and you want to specialize in hand therapy, I'm here to support you and help you and say, hey, it is possible for you. Don't give up on yourself. Give yourself a chance. You're so close to winning, right? You are so close to winning. So, but the key thing here is you have to make a decision. It always comes down to decision making. People who have the best lives, made decisions years ago, then now they get to reap the rewards of those decisions, right? So it's indecision about taking the exam that kills people. I don't know how many people I talk to, when they fail, is because they were indecisive months before, right? This is a crucial time. Months before the November exam, you should be studying. You made the decision. Make the decision to start studying now. What happens is people, oh, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't do it, because you're kind of trying to give yourself an out. But what if, because your brain creates more problems than it creates solutions, right? Your brain creates more problems than it creates solution. To create solutions, you have to be so intentional all the time. So what happens is, if you have to make the decision right now, today, in the next hour, to go ahead and decide to do it. Because guess what? You know what? A lot of times people tell me when they fail is they make the decision a month before the exam, 3 weeks before the exam. Okay, I'm going to hunker down. I'm going to, throw a Hail Mary or whatever and do this long pass. And all of a sudden when they fail again, they don't understand why. Why did I fail? Well, you didn't really study. The indecision to actually study is the pitfall, is the thing that, like, unfortunately, is the reason why people fail, right? So how do you spot if you're failing? Right? If you don't study, like, you got to make that decision and stick with it. Just make the decision and say, yes, is what I want, and study, right? So the people who fail don't study, and they tell me, if they're honest, they'll tell me they don't study. They're making excuses for why they're so busy that they can't study, right? You didn't stick to the plan. Sometimes some shit comes up. People have some things, personal, a death in the family, things like that come up. Absolutely. Illnesses, things like that come up. Like, I get it. But then you have to pivot and change your plan, right? That's it. But you're going to fail if you don't study. If you make excuses for why you're not studying, you don't have any, like, legitimate reasons, right? You don't stick to the plan. There is a plan and you created it, or if you're in my program, you're part of the plan and you don't stick with it, right? You have to stick with it. Number 4, you're too desperate. If you're too desperate, it won't work. My flexor tendon guy, so desperate, I cannot move my finger, and he comes in pissed every single time. He's just mad. Why is this stupid thing? I'm like, I understand. You wanted it better yesterday. Better more. You wanted that shit to never have happened, right? So we wouldn't go through the struggle. But he tries so hard that he actually doesn't use the tendons that actually glide the fingers. He actually uses all of his intrinsics and squeezes in. So you can almost feel that he doesn't pull down with his other fingers. So there is a movement, but then there is a rhythm to the movement. All right. So sometimes when you're too desperate, you're going to fail because you're putting so much pressure on yourself that you can't think, you can't remember, you can't rationalize, right? Don't be too desperate. It's a sign of failure, really, honestly. Here's how to spot if you have a chance at passing, right? Here's how, if you're doing all the right things, right? You created a realistic plan. Let me tell you again, you created a realistic plan. I was talking to someone who applied to be in the hand exam prep program, and her goal, after not having studied, was to take the exam in November. She's getting married in October. She's moving in October. I was like, dear Lord, have mercy. I could sit here and pretend like you can take the exam and pass in November, but how about we create a realistic plan for you so you have a chance of passing, right? Let's create a realistic plan. If you create an unrealistic plan, then don't be mind boggled at why it didn't work. I know I create unrealistic plans all day, every day. And then I'm like, oh my God, why didn't it work? But then when you live in this frustration constantly, so I have to remind myself, don't create unrealistic plans. I have someone else that I work with as a coach, as a mentor, to remind me of all the problems that my brain is creating, right? This is why sometimes it's so valuable to not waste time and money to try to do everything alone, right? That's why it's valuable and beneficial to join some kind of program like the hand exam prep program to help you get going better, faster, completing, following a plan, being realistic, and all that stuff. It's the same as when your patients come to you for therapy. It's the same thing. You're going to ask them to come in. You help them with some of some of their most difficult problems. You need to also be okay getting help with some of the most difficult challenges that you have, right? Creating a realistic plan is 100% key. Then you have to stick to the plan. If you stick to the plan, you're going to be better off than if you didn't stick to a plan. If you're flexible in your plan from week to week, again, if something happens, knowing how to pivot, knowing how to make those changes, being mentally flexible is really key to helping to ensure that you're not desperate, right? And then the fourth chance of passing is studying in a way, right, that helps you apply your knowledge. I understand it's fun to do little quizzes and say, do I know this? But at the end of the day, it's not just about memorization, it's about application. The exam is hard or challenging your knowledge on how you apply what you know so that you can actually apply to help real patients in their treatments, right? And when you're able to critically think through and problem solve through the data, through the information that they have provided for you, it's what allows you to pick the best possible answer. That's decision making. And that happens on the everyday basis that you're treating as well. I had to make a decision on how am I going to get this PIP straight after a zone 2 flexor tendon? And when do I get it straight? Right? How aggressive can I be? Well, I needed to wait until the wound closed, first of all. And then I stretched how I had to get patient agreement. He had to agree to wear it. Right? And then I chose to do plaster casting over, just a splint that patients can take on and off because I can get the results faster. I can have him stay in it as long as possible while he also does passive stretching. He actually has an incision right here. So you go into composite extension. And then he also can work on extension and flexion passively of the DIP to give him a chance to block, to do some blocking. I know some of y'all people are going to be like, but the protocol says no blocking on a small finger. And I know that protocol. And if there was an exam question, I'd have to pick it based on what I should do. But what I do sometimes is slightly different. So no judgments from these CHTs. But here's why I do it. It's because he's so freaking adhered. I mean, come on, like things barely moving, right? So we've got to be a little bit more aggressive based on how it looks and feels, right? So anyway, so close. If he can just keep going and actually get full end range, everything comes down to end range. If we can get to end range, your patients will do so well. So we got to get to end range extension. End range extension is harder to get and keep than flexion. So then we're going to get into flexion next, and then we're going to make sure everything's gliding. And when I say next, doesn't necessarily mean that I do it outside of each other. They're simultaneous, but even in the same session, I'm working on extension, then I work on flexion, then I work on extension, and then I'm between those, I'm doing gliding, right? And then a lot of times when it comes to tendons, people have to, when it comes to hand injuries, people have to learn how to remove their hands. So when they're desperately trying so hard, they actually squeeze with their shoulders and neck muscles more than they squeeze with their hands. And so I was like, you're squeezing more with your arm and shoulder than you are with your actual tendons that I need to glide. And that's where I talk always about this sense of desperation, like when you want it so much, that you cloud your thinking and you cloud how you do stuff is not as effective, right? So I have to remind him, hey, relax. Hey, let's do it this way, so we can get actually better like sensation and feel that those tendons are actually moving. And when we can redirect, we can get better results, right? And he's so close. And I do have to have a conversation with him about like, if it's not moving, you're going to need a tenolysis. But here's how to put yourself in the best possible position for a tenolysis based on evidence, based on my experience as well, right? So the people who make the best recovery after tenolysis came in there with the loosest joints, came in there with no pain. So there's still work to be done, even if we have to consider a second surgery. But you know what? It also gives us time. And we have created a plan that works for him. Well, I don't know if it works for him, but this is a plan that I highly recommend, because it gives him time to actually get the range of motion, the smoothness, the ease, the decreased pain. It gives him a chance to like get some tendon glide, right? So he's so close that if I didn't work with him in a certain way and didn't show him all of the progress that he's making, then he might just quit. And just when he's about to win, he's going to quit. And then what happens? Then his finger's going to get stuck. And then a year later, he's going to want to do something, and it's going to be like not necessarily too late, but so much harder. And there are times, depending on the injury, when it is too late, right? How does this pertain to you as a therapist? Well, I think when it comes to being a therapist and becoming a certified hand therapist, it's never too late. But you do have to make some decisions on when you're going to get started. How are you going to get started? And once you make those decisions, then we need to stick with it, right? So if you need help making some of those decisions, one, I invite you to apply for the hand exam prep program. And when you apply for it, we'll go over some questionnaires. And if you're committed, we can create a plan for you, right? And we can talk about what that plan looks like, how it's going to be realistic, and how it's actually going to help you study in a way that helps you pass. And not just a pass, right? Not just a pass. I want to help you pass for sure. But really, at the end of the day, I want to help you become a more effective hand therapist that you can feel comfortable treating any kind of cases that come your way, right? So, because I think that there's so much need in the community, whether it's in my community, in your community. Therapists are worldwide, right? I have students from all over, which I'm really grateful to be able to do, but they have people in their community that they could help. You have people in your community that you can help. And those people need you to know what to do, but also why you're doing what you're doing so that you can better explain it to them. When they understand on their terms, when they understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, there's a lot more buy-in to keep coming back to you so that they can get the results that they want. At the end of the day, they want results. We all want results, right? And that's what they pay for. So, and that's what they're spending their time with you for. All right. So don't give up. You're so close to winning, but don't quit, because you cannot win if you quit. You cannot win if you quit. All right. If you need my help, you know where to find me. If you're on Instagram, slide into my DMs or go click the link in the bio in order to apply for the hand exam prep program. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, there should be a link there. Go to handtherapysecrets.com and apply for the hand exam prep program. We're getting geared up. We're getting ready to get started August 2nd. So I'll be closing down enrollment for the program and just really focusing on that. So if you have any questions about what it's like or what you need to do, go ahead and look on that link so that can give you details of the program. I'm happy to share more details of the program for you as well if you are interested in becoming a certified hand therapist. Oh, somebody had a question. How does one reduce spasticity in the hand and leg affected, is there a recommended herbal tea? There is no herbal tea that reduces spasticity in the hand and leg. Usually spasticity is a neurological type of condition, and without going into great detail about it, there's no teas that really help with that. All right. I hope that you find someone in your area who can help you with that, because it does require, if you have spasticity, requires like ongoing help, ongoing therapy, and knowing what to do. All right. So if you have any other questions as it pertains to becoming a certified hand therapist, I would love to help you. All right. I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.